what you think. Look,
Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 159th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So I know I've given Noreaga, aka Nori, a bit of a hard time for some of the episodes of Drink Champs, and how he'll occasionally handle interviews. Today we're winding the clock back way before him and DJ EFN came together to start a podcast. Nori really made his leap to stardom in 1998 with his LP of the same name, mainly due to it including massive tracks like Super Thug, which is definitely one of the hardest beats the Neptunes ever put together. If you don't believe me, just listen to the clip where Pharrell Williams talks about how many of the beats that ended up on Justified, Justin Timberlake's debut, were originally made for Michael Jackson, whose manager famously told Pharrell that he wanted the more aggressive and in-your-face beats he was giving to Nori. That solo debut also included one of the most legendary posse cuts ever released, which of course is banned from TV, where we get classic verses from the likes of Nature, Big Pun, both Jadakiss and Styles P of the Locks, as well as an up-and-coming Cameron. However, today we aren't focusing on that album. We're actually talking about the project that set the stage for Nori's long-spanning career, 1997's The War Report, which he dropped 1 year prior to his solo LP, in collaboration with fellow legendary MC Capone. While a number of stints in jail would plague both young talents to a degree that it prevented them from reaching their full true potential, their debut album here is a staple of hardcore mid to late 90s boom bap. The War Report is actually one of the last LPs I can think of that proliferated the East versus West Coast beef, though the disc that shows up on here was initially released as a single in 1996. So by the time it was actually released, I'm pretty sure the war was dying down and starting to fade out before any further damage could be caused. This honestly couldn't have come at a better time, as CNN really held no punches on their diss track LA LA or the pretty savage music video that accompanied it, which of course were both in response to the Dog Pound's diss titled New York, New York in its video, which infamously saw Snoop Dogg knocking down all these towers in the big city as an attempt to show dominance over the East. Capone and Nori wisely enlisted a fellow Queens-based duo that had no shortage of experience in this ongoing East Coast-West Coast feud, that being Havoc and Prodigy of Mobb Deep, who were dealing with an even greater direct line of fire through being one of the main targets in Machiavelli or Tupac's posthumous diss on 7 Day Theory, or to be more accurate, the multiple disses. They had actually already dissed out a response of their own that same year in 1996 would drop a gem on them off of Hell on Earth. But coming to the aid of these two up-and-comers showed that Havoc and P intended on staying directly on the front lines of this war, at least until the Peace Summit a year later in 97. While they may not be directly dissing the West Coast or other areas on every song here, one thing that's undeniable is that the War Report is a New York record through and through. While Havoc had a hand in multiple tracks on here, there's one MC who plays an even larger role in this project, that being Tragedy Gaddafi, aka Intelligent Hoodlum, who's basically the unofficial third man of this act for all intents and purposes. He not only serves as a producer and executive producer on a good chunk of tracks, but he appears on the feature side as a guest on over half of the LP. However, Gaddafi was actually nowhere near a beginner at this time. As I referenced, he was also the mastermind behind the 1990 Intelligent Hoodlum LP, alongside Marley Marl and Large Professor. I'm sure the input of these legends who already had put some time in and dealt with the label/marketing side of things helped Capone and Noriega navigate these waters a bit more easily, though I do know there were a couple of tracks that had to be removed off the final retail version of this album due to some sample clearance issues. Luckily, that hardly puts a dent in this hour and 10-minute ride through their hood, where the daily struggle for survival is highlighted through war comparisons and metaphors, detailing how none of these guys are walking around with guns because they think it's just a fun thing to do. These aren't guys who just woke up one day and decided to hop over the nice white picket fence and go to the bad side of town, and that'll become pretty apparent if you dive into either member's background and environmental struggles. Both sound like they were just born to rap, and they were one of the most successful acts when it comes to kind of updating this early 90s grimy hardcore sound. Birthed through early 90s rap crews like Onyx or Wu-Tang Clan. Nori has a pretty recognizable vocal tone that separates him whenever he's on a track with multiple MCs, which on the War Report is relatively often. However, while I slightly prefer Noreaga a tiny bit to Capone, both rappers in CNN are highly technical and lyrically proficient, and they have styles that, along with their voices and personalities, contrast each other and mesh together really well. Capone has plenty of fiery bars all over this thing, but I wanted to share some lines from one of my favorite verses, which is actually Nori's first set of rhymes that grace us on the War Report, where he says, "I'm fouler than cats that don't bust when they supposed to. Been around you, played close, but wasn't close to you. The setup was weak, you coming, I saw you cutting corners, snake type shit. Tie you up, seal your lip, wrist bleeding, cowboy rope, choke your throat, put the bogey out in your face, now your face laced like ashtray face. Stay with gat on my waist, give the gods some space." While I already mentioned a couple of the featured artists on here, that's just the tip of the iceberg, as we also get guest appearances from legends like Busta Rhymes, Imam Thug, Castro, Mussolini, Mendoza, Troy Outlaw, Nika, E Moneybags, and Nas. I also delved into the producers a bit, but outside of Tragedy Gaddafi, Havoc, and Marley, the instrumentals also got handled by the likes of Charlemagne, Easy LP, Nashim Myrick, Carlos 6 July Brody, Naughty Shorts, DJ Clark Kent, G Money, and we even get some production by a couple of DITC members in the form of Buck Wild and Lord Finesse. For honorable mentions on this one, I'd probably have to leave out the infamous LALA diss since I discussed it at length, and instead go with tracks like Blood Money, Driver's Seat, Live On, Live Long, Tony or Top of New York, Black Gangstas, Channel 10, Halfway Thugs, and Capone Bone. For my top 3 overall favorites off of this classic, personally I would have to choose Parole Violators, Illegal Life, and Iraq or See the World. Thank you for watching my 159th video. Next time we have probably the most essential G-Funk pioneer that I've yet to discuss on the page, and I've actually seen a few requests for him on here. So check out for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments from this must-listen for any fan of grimy East Coast hip-hop are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Who would do such a thing? Look, I stand in the flame of a feeling we call pain. Father's Day mug, little hand shaped in clay. Carrier planes flew overhead in pockets.